To prove that humans and zombies could actually conceive a child, I decided to snatch a female zombie who looked relatively clean. It all started when a sudden disaster struck, turning nearly 90% of humanity into zombies. In a cruel twist of irony, I ended up activating a girl-chasing system that had absolutely nothing to do with the apocalypse. Just then, an incredibly beautiful female zombie abruptly appeared before my eyes. This sight snapped me wide awake. This love system didn't seem to have any rules regarding species, did it? Besides, letting a zombie this stunning go to waste would be a total sin. The moment that thought flashed my mind, I whipped a rope out of my bag. Seizing the perfect opening, I threw it with all my might. It looped accurately around the female zombie. She let out a piercing shriek on the spot, but a split second later, I stuffed a rag into her mouth. Smelling the scent of fresh human flesh nearby, the zombie instantly went berserk. Her small head thrashed wildly against me, while I excitedly gripped her hand. At that exact moment, the system notification rang in my head. Congratulations to the host for completing the hand-holding mission. Target, Shen Qingwu. Identity, university student. Current status, zombie. Favorability, 0. Reward for hand-holding, 100 kilograms of fresh meat. Reward for first kiss, zombie virus vaccine. Reward for total conquest, genetic evolution serum. Seeing these generous rewards, my breathing grew heavy. Just the initial 100 kilograms of meat alone was enough to keep me fed comfortably for 2.5 years, not to mention the 2 overpowered treasures that followed. But the most difficult problem now was how on earth was I supposed to increase Shen Qingwu's favorability? After a moment of thought, I reached out and yanked the rag out of her mouth. She immediately snarled at me with feral rage. The sound of her sharp fangs grinding together sent chills down my spine. Without a word, I pulled a piece of raw meat from the system space and shoved it into her mouth. The roaring stopped instantly. A second later, she began to tear into the meat ravenously. Watching this scene, I let out a helpless sigh. With a mouthful of fangs like that, it looked like I couldn't count on that first kiss reward anytime soon. Just then, the door to the neighboring room suddenly creaked open, and a man and a woman stepped out. The woman spoke as soon as she opened her mouth. "Hey, handsome, my husband and I haven't had anything to eat for 2 days. Your food supply is so massive you're even feeding zombies. Could you spare some for us?" The 2 people before me were a newlywed couple, the husband Shen Liang and the wife Lin Wanzi. Usually they lived entirely off takeout, so they didn't have a single scrap of food stockpiled in their home. In my past life, I was foolish enough to believe their sweet talk and shared my supplies with them. I actually thought they would be grateful. Instead, they waited until I went out scavenging to loot my room clean. They even locked the door from the outside, ignoring my desperate shouts and refusing to let me back in. How could I ever give food to these ungrateful white-eyed wolves again? However, this Lin Wanzi in front of me, she could be of some use. As that thought struck me, the system interface suddenly popped up over her head. Target, Lin Wanzi. Identity, married woman. Favorability, 0. Hand-holding reward, 100 kilograms of fresh vegetables and fruits. First kiss reward, a fully furnished 120 square meter apartment. Total conquest reward, a 1,000 square meter luxury villa. Seeing these rewards, the corners of my mouth couldn't help but curl into a smirk. 100 kilograms of fresh produce. Even though I wasn't starving, nutritional balance is the ultimate luxury in the apocalypse. Seeing me smile, the couple assumed I had already agreed to their request. Shen Liang immediately tried to take a mile after being given an inch. "Give us 5 kilograms of pork first and add 3 crates of purified water." I almost burst out laughing at their sheer audacity. When did I ever agree to give you anything? Even if I have so much food I have to feed it to dogs, I would never give a single bite to ungrateful backstabbers like you. After dropping that line, I pushed Shen Qingwu back into the room. Shen Liang gnashed his teeth in rage as he glared at me. He wanted to make a move, but he was terrified of the zombie by my side. Inside, I sat Shen Qingwu properly and casually opened the system panel. The result took me completely by surprise. To my surprise, Shen Qingwu's favorability actually shot up by 5 points. I immediately recalled the late stages of the apocalypse in my past life. Evolved zombies eventually developed intelligence. Could it be that Shen Qingwu could be evolving too? And if a tiny bit of meat could raise her favorability by 5 points, this was going to be much easier than wooing a normal girl. With that in mind, I pulled out a few more scraps of raw meat to feed her. Her favorability successfully hit 10 points. I originally planned to press my advantage and keep feeding her, but seeing her little belly growing round and full, I decided to call it a day. After stuffing the rag back into her mouth, I began planning my next moves. A month after the zombie outbreak, a terrifying period of extreme cold would strike. I only had about 20 days to prepare. First, I had to solve the supply issue. Food and water were the top priorities for survival. Next were warm clothes and medicine. Those were manageable, but the most critical item, a safe house, was something I had no lead on. This safe house didn't just need to be sturdy, it had to maintain a stable temperature during the extreme frost. Finding an existing structure that met all those conditions was harder than climbing to heaven. As far as I knew, nowhere in Tanhai City fit the bill. But right then, an idea flashed through my mind. Remembering Lin Wanzi's first kiss reward, I hurriedly summoned the system in my head. System, is the house you reward already constructed, or does it appear out of thin air? The system replied, all rewarded housing is constructed from nothingness. The host may designate any construction site. What if I have special requirements? For example, building it of titanium alloy with secret exits, a warehouse, medical or communication equipment. The system went silent for a few seconds. The host must provide the blueprints. Additionally, communication and medical equipment are not included in the list. The host must acquire them personally. This news made me deliriously happy. That means my titanium alloy safe house actually had a chance. Just then, a sudden knock echoed at the door. Lin Wanzi was standing there all alone. Seeing that no one was opening the door, she frantically freaked out. The ends of the hallway were pitch black. Who knew if a zombie might suddenly lunge out? Just as she was about to give up, the door finally swung open. Relief washed over Lin Wanzi's face, but as soon as she saw the meat cleaver in my hand, her heart tightened. She scrambled to explain. Don't misunderstand, I'm not carrying any weapons. I narrowed my eyes, scanning her from head to toe. Lin Wanzi realized I was checking her out. If this were the old days, she probably would have slapped me long ago. But now, since she was the one begging for a favor, she could only force out a smile. I want to ask you for some food. I gave her a look of pure disdain. Just borrowing it? I won't let you lose out. As long as you lend me some food, I will... But I didn't buy that act for a second. Without saying a word, I started to close the door. Lin Wanzi didn't budge. What's wrong? Aren't you afraid a zombie will suddenly jump out from the hallway? The moment I finished speaking, a zombie's roar echoed from the distance. Lin Wanzi's pretty face instantly turned pale with terror. She had no choice but to grit her teeth and step into my apartment. As I shut the door, I happened to lock eyes with Shen Liang in the apartment across the hall. Seeing he'd been spotted, he immediately pulled his head back inside. I let out a cold snort and slammed the door. Truly a born teenage mutant ninja turtle, his head-shrinking skills were top tier. Inside the room, Shen Qingwu went berserk the moment she saw Lin Wanzi. Lin Wanzi recoiled in a reflex of fear, letting out a shriek to put some distance between them. Why are you keeping a zombie in your house? Aren't you afraid? My expression remained nonchalant. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a zombie. This sentence made her unconsciously start comparing me to Shen Liang. Deep down, she couldn't help but think that if her husband had even half of my courage, she wouldn't have to come here and endure this humiliation. With a heavy sigh, Lin Wanzi said, "Fine, what exactly do you want me to do to give me the food?" A few minutes later, she returned to the living room and
Porkin casually tossed it onto the floor in front of her. Her expression turned ugly as she stared at the meat on the ground. "You're only giving me this much? That's plenty. I originally planned to give you only a quarter kilo." How could Lin Wanzi know how precious half a kilo of meat was in the apocalypse? She only remembered that when Shen Liang married her, the dowry was $380,000, and her name was even on the house title. Lin Wanzi took a deep breath, finally bent down to pick up the pot, and walked out with a cold, stony face. Seeing her like that, I wasn't angry. I was delighted. The more miserable she felt, the more intense my sense of revenge became. Afterward, I happily opened the system panel. The house and the fresh produce were both showing as pending. Although a 100-square-meter house was a bit small, I had a solution. I just needed to find another person, a woman with a similar status to Lin Wanzi, to expand upon that 100-square-meter foundation. The only problem now was the blueprint for the safe house. Luckily, there might be survivors from the architecture department at Tanhai University. It looks like I had to make a trip outside. Early the next morning, I began the task of gathering supplies. My first target, Unit 504 across the hall. I took a piece of wire and poked it into the keyhole, solving the lock effortlessly in seconds. As soon as I stepped inside, I heard the sound of ravenous chewing coming from the bedroom. I crept over and pushed the bedroom door open. Inside, a white-haired old man was gnawing on a corpse on the bed. "Disgusting," I muttered, grabbing my cleaver and swinging it at the zombie. To my surprise, the strike didn't do much damage. Instead, it completely enraged the creature. It turned around, baring its fangs and claws as it lunged at me. I delivered a front kick to its chest, sending it flying backward, then rushed in to land several more hacks until it stopped moving entirely. When I finally caught my breath, I noticed my meat cleaver already had 2 jagged nicks in the blade. The exchange. After all, a meat cleaver is fine for butchering, but hacking through zombie bone is pushing it. Looks like it's time to find a more suitable weapon. By midday, I had finally finished scavenging all 6 units on the 5th floor. In total, I took down 3 zombies and found a crate of malt juice, 7 miscellaneous bottles of medicine, and a tub of protein powder. While the haul wasn't bad, my sharp cleaver was now completely trashed. Luckily, I found a baseball bat. After a couple of test swings, it felt pretty good in my hands. Meanwhile, Lin Wanzi and Shen Liang had witnessed my entire zombie-slaying spree through the peer holes of their doors. My crazed efficiency made them both swallow hard, secretly relieved they hadn't been stupid enough to pick a fight earlier. If they had, they'd have been pushing up daisies by now. It wasn't until they heard my door click shut that they dared to creep outside. They carefully searched each room, hoping to scavenge any food I might have missed. Unfortunately for them, I had picked the place clean. They couldn't find so much as a crumb. Damn it, is that bastard a human locust? He didn't leave a single bite. I think I found a steak, but it's covered in mold. Shen Liang's eyes darted around. Honey, why don't you head back over to his place and ask for a bit more food? Lin Wanzi looked completely reluctant. We're not that hungry yet. Maybe we shouldn't go. We're not hungry now, but we will be sooner or later. Are you really going to wait until he feeds all his food to those undead freaks before you're willing to go ask? Seeing her hesitate, Shen Liang earnestly took her hand. Honey, I want to keep living with you. We can definitely hold out until the rescue team arrives. Looking at her husband's pleading eyes, Lin Wanzi gritted her teeth. Fine, I'll go. The moment Lin Wanzi stepped through my door, she was hit by an incredibly enticing aroma. I walked into the kitchen and soon brought out an electric rice cooker filled to the brim with potato stew. I cracked open a bottle of malt juice and sat comfortably on the sofa to eat. Lin Wanzi was so seduced by the smell that she kept swallowing her saliva. But seeing that I said nothing, she could only stand there awkwardly. I took 2 bites before acting as if I'd suddenly remembered her. Oh, I almost forgot you were here. As I spoke, I stood up, took a plate, and ladled some meat onto it. Lin Wanzi thought it was for her, just as she happily reached out her hands to take it. I walked straight past her toward the sofa. After yanking the rag out of Shen Qingwu's mouth, the zombie immediately buried her face in the plate, devouring it ravenously. Lin Wanzi stood on the other side, her face flushed with embarrassment. She let out a dry cough to change the subject. So, you cleared out the whole 5th floor today? Yeah, and I'm getting ready to leave. I need to gather more supplies before I go. Lin Wanzi's eyes widened at that. What? You're leaving? There are zombies everywhere. Where could you possibly go? I smiled without answering. What's the matter? Can't bear to see me go? Hearing those words, Lin Wanzi's face filled with indignation. Who said I'd miss you? I hope you drop dead out there. But despite her words, a trace of worry flickered in her eyes. If I took all the food with me, wouldn't she and Shen Liang starve to death? Just say it. What did you come here for exactly? I want to trade for some food. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I had long predicted that Lin Wanzi would come back, but I didn't expect her skin to be quite this thick. In a flash, 4 days had passed, and I had turned the entire building upside down. Over these few days, Shen Qingwu's appetite had become incredibly terrific. From needing only half a kilo of meat to be full at the start, now 2.5 kilos wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between her teeth. Yet her lower belly didn't show the slightest bulge. If it weren't for her favorability constantly increasing, I really didn't want to feed her anymore. Regardless of whether she understood or not, I just went ahead and threatened her myself. I've been raising you for 6 days now. If you still dare to harbor bad intentions and bite me, I'll throw you out of here to fend for yourself. After speaking, I removed the rag from her mouth. She didn't shriek like she did at the beginning. Instead, she opened her mouth wide, waiting for me to feed her. If you dare bite me, I won't give you any more food. Do you hear me? Since you're not speaking, I'll just take it as your silent agreement. I cautiously extended my hand towards Shen Qingwu. The result was her unceremoniously opening her mouth, intending to bite. I immediately barked, "No!" She was stunned by my shout for a moment. Then she tilted her head to look at me. I carefully reached out again, but Shen Qingwu still tried to bite as usual. We went back and forth like this in a stalemate more than a dozen times. Just as I was about to give up, she finally stopped biting and just stared at my face, seeming to try and judge through my expression whether this thing was edible or not. My heart was wild with joy. I shook my head slightly at her. Shen Qingwu seemed to catch my meaning, and she actually didn't bite again. Excitedly, I took another piece of meat, held it out, and gave her a nod. This time, she ate it instantly. I tried a few more times after that. Each time, she waited for me to nod before she was willing to eat. To verify whether she could only restrain her aggression while tied up, I decided to conduct one more experiment. First, I untied her and placed a plate of meat on the coffee table. Shen Qingwu stood up unsteadily and walked towards me. She first looked at the meat on the table, then glanced at me. Next, she raised her hand and pointed at the plate of meat, making my heart leap with joy again. I nodded at her. Only then did Shen Qingwu pick up the plate. She devoured it ravenously. I had to admit, her eating manners were still quite hideous. But the one redeeming thing was that with her favorability at only 40, she already stopped attacking me. So, if her favorability reached 100, wouldn't I have a perfectly obedient zombie Loki? What kind of a love system was this? It was clearly a master-servant rearing system. Meanwhile, on the other end, Shen Liang had been sitting on pins and needles these past few days. He had caught wind of my plan to leave. Whether for food or revenge, he had no intention of letting me leave here alive. But relying on himself alone, he certainly stood no chance. After all, I was the kind of powerhouse who could easily take on a whole horde of zombies alone. So Shen Liang started playing tricks with his wife again. "Honey, we absolutely cannot let that brat leave, at least not with the food. How about you go over there to borrow food again?" Tomorrow morning, I prepared to go to bed a bit early, but just as I lay down, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it, the corners of my mouth curling into a smirk. "What is it? Hungry again so soon?" Hearing this, Lin Wanzi cursed silently, wanting nothing more than to punch me right in the face, but she managed to suppress it, even squeezing out a seductive expression. "It's not just my stomach that's hungry. Let me in." I leaned aside to make way. Just as Lin Wanzi brushed past me, I reached out and slapped her on the rear. That sensation, soft as jelly, made me offer a sincere compliment. Lin Wanzi clutched her backside, glaring at me indignantly. "You have to give me another pack of cookies." Seeing her looking so furious, yet not daring to speak out, I couldn't help but throw my head back and laugh. Turns out, the feeling of not being a good guy is actually this great.
I didn't feel a shred of empathy for her. The way they treated me in my past life, this was simply their karma. Lin Wanzi lowered her head, but a burning rage flickered in the depths of her eyes. Wait until tonight passes. Let's see if you can still laugh then. A few hours later, Lin Wanzi came out, trembling as she leaned against the wall. It was only a dozen steps from the bedroom to the door, yet it took her several minutes to cross. As soon as she opened the door, Shen Ling slipped inside. How is it? Is he asleep? Perfect. Let's end him now. With that, Shen Ling gripped the fruit knife tightly in his hand. But before he could take more than a few steps, he saw a figure standing at the bedroom door. This sight scared the wits out of him. Didn't you say he was asleep? Lin Wanzi was also struck with terror, but she immediately realized something was wrong. This is the zombie that bastard was keeping. How did it get out of the ropes? Honey, what should we do? Maybe we should retreat first. At this moment, Shen Ling's heart was in a fierce tug of war. Although he feared zombies, he understood even better that if he missed tonight, there would be no other chance. Besides, Shen Qingwu looked dazed and confused, which gave Shen Ling the illusion that he could handle her. To be safe, he spoke to Lin Wanzi. Honey, go distracted. I'll finish it off from behind. Upon hearing this, Lin Wanzi trembled with fear. Don't worry, I won't let it hurt you. Shen Ling gave his word, but in his heart, he was already prepared to sell his wife out at any second. But how could Lin Wanzi agree to that? She didn't love Shen Ling enough to die for him. At that moment, my impatient voice rang out from the bedroom door. I say, how much longer are you two planning to discuss this? Hearing my voice, Shen Ling and Lin Wanzi's hearts nearly leapt out of their chests. You're not asleep? With the two of you making such a racket, even if I were asleep, I'd be wide awake by now. Seeing the nonchalant smile on my face, Lin Wanzi's face turned deathly pale. Honey, let the zombie block him. Let's run. Are you talking about her? Under their disbelieving eyes, I reached out and rubbed Shen Qingwu's head. Not only did she not attack me, she also obediently let me pet her. This scene literally made the two of them wet their pants in fear. How is this possible? This girl didn't just look human, even her behavior was completely different from other zombies. Shen Ling suddenly shoved Lin Wanzi hard toward me, while he turned and bolted for the door. But he didn't make 2 steps before I caught him. One swing and he was down. Wait, I have something to say. Please don't kill me. But I was too lazy to waste words with her. I finished her off decisively. Lin Wanzi watched this, her soul nearly leaving her body. It was all Shen Ling's idea. He wanted to hurt you. It has nothing to do with me. Please spare me. I swear I will serve you as my master from now on. Lin Wanzi still held on to a glimmer of hope, thinking I wouldn't have the heart to kill her. But I spoke coldly. You don't know you're wrong. You only know you're about to die. At this point, Shen Qingwu approached me and pointed at the 2 corpses on the floor. I shook my head. Nah, these are spoiled. Early the next morning, I took Shen Qingwu on my motorcycle and left the apartment. It's worth mentioning that the roar of the engine on the road attracted countless zombies, but those slow-moving creatures couldn't keep up at all, only able to watch as I sped away. Arriving at Tanhai University to lose the zombie army behind me, I was about to find a random building to hide in. Suddenly, I heard someone calling me. I hesitated for a moment, then left the motorcycle and ran towards the voice. The person who called me saw me approaching and quickly moved away from the window. I braced one hand on the frame and performed a beautiful vault inside. However, Shen Qingwu's body was stiff. She didn't know how to climb through a window and could only stand outside looking confused. A few male students enthusiastically wanted to help, but I pushed them aside. No need, I've got it. With that, I leaned halfway out, hooked my arms under Shen Qingwu's armpits, and lifted her inside with little effort. At this moment, a guy who looked like a rich playboy spoke up. You must be the person my father sent to rescue us, right? This guy Gu Changyu, relying on his status as the mayor's son, lied to others saying his father would send help, thus becoming the leader of this survivor group. I didn't even glance at his outstretched hand. Who the hell are you? Do I know you? Gu Changyu's face immediately turned ugly. He had said that to show off, and he didn't expect me to give him no face at all. To save his reputation, he took on a superior tone. In other words, you're a survivor just like us. If that's the case, you must follow our rules. One of his lackeys behind him saw this and immediately stepped forward to grab my backpack. I swiped his hand away and took a step back. What do you want? Gu Changyu put on a face of righteous justice. For everyone to survive, please hand over your supplies so we can distribute them uniformly. I snorted coldly. Whether you live or die has none of my business, and I have no intention of joining your group. I will absolutely not hand over my supplies. Gu Changyu gave a cold laugh and pointed out the window. Then I'm sorry, please leave immediately. At this moment, the zombies I had lured earlier were jostling outside the window, clawing at the glass and drooling. Naturally, I wasn't leaving right now. Besides, I hadn't achieved my goal yet. With so many classrooms here, I'd stay for a few days and leave when I felt like it. To these students, I was an outsider, so they were far more inclined to believe Gu Changyu's words. They surrounded me with looks of shared indignity. Who do you think you are to talk to young Master Gu like that? If we hadn't saved you just now, you'd be dead meat. Exactly. This is a school. What right does an outsider like you have to occupy our classrooms? I couldn't help but burst out into a loud laugh. It's the apocalypse and you're still trying to lecture me on morality? Besides, what if I simply insist on staying? You think a bunch of pampered brats who've never seen blood can stop me? You really think you can lay a hand on someone who crawled out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood? Just as both sides were at each other's throats, a beautiful girl in a long dress with a pure, innocent aura walked in. What's going on here? Lu Hei, this guy wants to freeload here. We're about to kick him out. Lu Hei frowned slightly. If he wants to stay, let him stay. We have plenty of empty classrooms. Why push someone out? Doing that is practically sending him to his death. Everyone, disperse. The students looked hesitantly towards Gu Changyu. It wasn't until he gave a nod that the crowd finally scattered. Lu Hei's gaze drifted past me and settled on Shen Qingwu. Is this your younger sister? She's truly beautiful. Something like that. Hello there, little sister. What's your name, and why are your eyes so red? Her enthusiasm was met with total silence. I quickly stepped forward to explain. She's just wearing colored contacts. My sister is a bit introverted and doesn't like to talk. Please don't mind her. She easily fell for my fabrication. After all, who would ever heard of a zombie that didn't proactively try to bite people? Well, you two can stay here for now. Floors 1 through 3 are safe. Just pick any empty classroom you like. But remember, anything from the 4th floor up is extremely dangerous. Noon arrived quickly. In front of a classroom labeled Warehouse, a dozen or so students were lining up. They were all waiting to receive today's rations, but most were only getting a few crackers, while Gu Changyu hid inside the storage room, secretly gorging on a chicken leg he'd swindled. Suddenly, a thick, savory aroma of meat wafted through the air. The dozen students stopped caring about the line. All eyes turned towards the source. Caught by the scent, everyone rushed downstairs. In a classroom on the 2nd floor, I had started a fire and was cooking. The crowd watched, their eyes turning red with envy. Gu Changyu walked straight in. Hey friend, can we use our supplies to trade for some of your food? I didn't even spare him a glance. With that moldy trash of yours, it tastes like crap and it doesn't fill the stomach. Gu Changyu wanted to...
But just then, a soft voice spoke up from the crowd. I'm an architecture major. Everyone looked toward the source of the sound, seeing a girl with braided hair and black-rimmed glasses. She looked extremely timid, clearly nervous being stared at by so many people. I evaluated her skeptically. Her cowering, shrinking demeanor made it hard not to suspect she was just trying to scam some food. Sensing the disdain in my eyes, the girl gathered her courage. My name is Nguyen Vien Vien. I'm the top student in my year. If you don't believe me, you can ask the other students. I believe you, but do you actually know how to draw professional blueprints? She suddenly looked up at me with a face full of surprise. Of course, I didn't believe her for no reason. It was because the system panel had appeared before my eyes. Target, Nguyen Vien Vien. Identity, architecture student. Favorability, 0. Hand-holding reward, solar power generator or sewage filtration system. Choose 1. First kiss reward, a comprehensive surveillance system.
Total conquest reward, 4 automated sentry turrets with 100 rounds of specialized ammo each. Impressive! Every single one of these rewards was top tier. If I could collect them all, the defensive power of my safe house would increase exponentially. Hearing my question, Vian Vian nodded frantically like a chick pecking grain. I do. Then do you know how to draw some specialized architectural designs? A giant question mark appeared in her little head, but for the sake of food, the girl still agreed. Fine, I'm hiring you. Your daily wage, 1 bowl of meat and 1 bowl of vegetables. Vian Vian originally thought just getting some meat would be great, but she didn't expect fresh vegetables too. She joyfully accepted the job on the spot. While someone was happy, someone else was miserable. Gu Chengyu gave me a fierce glare and led his lackeys away with their tails between their legs. At the stairwell, a lackey named Luke Da looked left and right to ensure no one was following before speaking up. Young Master Gu, that brat is too arrogant. How about we take him out? Gu Chengyu pondered for a moment. No, you saw his skills against the zombies the other day. We are absolutely not his match. Right now, Gu Chengyu wanted to deal with me more than anyone, but his strength simply didn't allow it. Luke Da wanted to say more, but Gu Chengyu waved him off and left. Looking at his back, Luke Da snorted coldly. You've got big steaks and plenty of meat, of course you look down on his food, but I'm starving over here. No, I have to find a way to seize his supplies. Meanwhile, Vian Vian finished her meal and licked her lips longingly. Seeing this, I asked, "Want some more?" She shook her head. "No need, I've already eaten today's wage. If I eat tomorrow's portion now, I'll go hungry tomorrow." I was slightly stunned by her words. "Well then, let's get to work." Vian Vian chirped in acknowledgement and immediately entered work mode. She opened her backpack, pulled out a laptop, and said, "State your requirements." "I want a safe house blueprint with a 100-meter footprint. It must be extremely sturdy, with a warehouse, an escape hatch, a living area, and a bathroom." If it's only 100 meters square, that's too small for a safe house, since you also need to set aside space for planting and livestock. I glanced at her with surprise. This girl was thinking even more thoroughly than I was. "You're right, so you also need to leave space for future expansions." "I understand. I'll start right away." Thrilled, I asked her, "How long until it's finished?" "It'll probably take a few days. If you need adjustments later, that'll be another 2 or 3 days." I immediately frowned. According to my memories from my past life, a severe cold spell would hit in a little over a week. If I didn't move into the safe house before then, I'd freeze to death in this.
But just then, a soft voice spoke up from the crowd. I'm an architecture major." Everyone looked toward the source of the sound, seeing a girl with braided hair and black-rimmed glasses. She looked extremely timid, clearly nervous being stared at by so many people. I evaluated her skeptically. Her cowering, shrinking demeanor made it hard not to suspect she was just trying to scam some food. Sensing the disdain in my eyes, the girl gathered her courage. "My name is Nguyen Vian Vian. I'm the top student in my year. If you don't believe me, you can ask the other students." "I believe you, but do you actually know how to draw professional blueprints?" She suddenly looked up at me with a face full of surprise. Of course, I didn't believe her for no reason. It was because the system panel had appeared before my eyes. Target, Nguyen Vian Vian. Identity, architecture student. Favorability, 0. Hand-holding reward, solar power generator or sewage filtration system. Choose one. First kiss reward, a comprehensive surveillance system. Total conquest reward, 4 automated sentry turrets with 100 rounds of specialized ammo each. Impressive. Every single one of these rewards was top tier. If I could collect them all, the defensive power of my safe house would increase exponentially. Hearing my question, Vian Vian nodded frantically like a chick pecking grain. "I do." "Then do you know how to draw some specialized architectural designs?" A giant question mark appeared in her little head, but for the sake of food, the girl still agreed. "Fine, I'm hiring you. Your daily wage, 1 bowl of meat and 1 bowl of vegetables." Vian Vian originally thought just getting some meat would be great, but she didn't expect fresh vegetables too. She joyfully accepted the job on the spot. While someone was happy, someone else was miserable. Gu Chengyu gave me a fierce glare and led his lackeys away with their tails between their legs.
At the stairwell, a lackey named Luke Day looked left and right to ensure no one was following before speaking up. "Young Master Gu, that brat is too arrogant. How about we take him out?" Gu Chengyu pondered for a moment. "No, you saw his skills against the zombies the other day. We are absolutely not his match." Right now, Gu Chengyu wanted to deal with me more than anyone, but his strength simply didn't allow it. Luke Day wanted to say more, but Gu Chengyu waved him off and left. Looking at his back, Luke Day snorted coldly. "You got big steaks and plenty of meat. Of course you look down on his food, but I'm starving over here. No, I have to find a way to seize his supplies." Meanwhile, Vian Vian finished her meal and licked her lips longingly. Seeing this, I asked, "Want some more?" She shook her head. "No need. I've already eaten today's wage. If I eat tomorrow's portion now, I'll go hungry tomorrow." I was slightly stunned by her words. "Well then, let's get to work." Vian Vian chirped an acknowledgement and immediately entered work mode. She opened her backpack, pulled out a laptop, and said, "State your requirements." "I want a safe house blueprint with a 100-meter squared footprint. It must be extremely sturdy, with a warehouse, an escape hatch, a living area, and a bathroom." "If it's only 100 meters squared, that's too small for a safe house, since you also need to set aside space for planting and livestock." I glanced at her surprised. This girl was thinking even more thoroughly than I was. "You're right, so you also need to leave space for future expansions." "I understand. I'll start right away." Thrilled, I asked her, "How long till it's finished?" "It'll probably take a few days. If you need adjustments later, that'll be another 2 or 3 days." I immediately frowned. According to my memories from my past life, a severe cold spread would hit in a little over a week. If I didn't move into the safe house before then, I'd freeze to death in this drafty teaching building. "I need you to finish the blueprint within 7 days. Do you have the confidence?" Initially hesitant, Vian Vian's gaze quickly became determined. "No problem." 7 days it was. I took Shen Qingwu to the rooftop to find a suitable spot to build the shelter. Soon, I spotted a vacant piece of land on the mountain behind the school. It was shielded from the lecture hall in front and backed against a massive mountain. Evolution and ambush. If you don't actually enter the school grounds, it's very hard to spot this place. Plus, the number of zombies here is not high. I grabbed my baseball bat, ready to clear them out. I climbed out through the first floor window and scanned the surroundings. 4 zombies were loitering. Even though I was careful enough to crush one's skull silently, the remaining 3 were alerted. The first to lunge was a guy in a t-shirt who looked like an athlete in his past life, not at all like the usual sluggish ones. This athlete zombie ran incredibly fast, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. I didn't panic. I sidestepped his charge, using his momentum to swing my bat with full force. True to his athletic nature, he took the hit and kept moving. I immediately followed up with another strike. Just then, the 3rd zombie lunged at my face. I dropped into a leg sweep to knock it down, then finished it with 2 more swings. Finally, the last zombie tackled me. Before I could stand, it pinned me to the ground, its blood-stained maw wide open, gnashing and tearing at my baseball bat. I cursed under my breath, trying several times to shove it off, but failed. Just as I was gathering all my strength for a last push, a small, slender hand suddenly grabbed the zombie by the neck and hurled it away. I turned my head in shock to find the owner of that hand was none other than Shen Qingwu. The tossed zombie roared and charged again. Before I could even get up, Shen Qingwu moved in a blur, gripping its throat and giving a powerful twist. With a sickening crack, the zombie's head went limp. Holy crap! I didn't expect someone who looked so frail to possess such monstrous strength. It seems my hunch was right. She had indeed evolved. Earlier, when I noticed her skin changing from a grayish white to a healthy pink, I had my suspicions. Now they were finally confirmed. I checked the system panel and found her favorability had hit 50. She's much easier to please than a normal woman. No need for designer bags or makeup, just a bit of food and she'll even protect me. Under my stare, her face remained rippleless, as if she hadn't just saved my life. After a moment of daze, I went back to clearing the horde.
Shen Qingwu only intervened when my life was in imminent danger. Otherwise, she just stood by, silently watching the show. It seems if I want to actually command her, I need to keep raising that favorability. I stayed busy until dusk before returning to the teaching building. At the men's restroom, I was about to strip down to wash off the blood when I realized Shen Qingwu had followed me in. Bathing in front of a woman, this was definitely a first. It felt a bit awkward, but after all, she was technically a zombie. I finished quickly and was about to change when I looked at her. I didn't know if zombies sweat, but the battle had left her covered in blood, so I decided to give her a wash too. She stared at me intently. Even though I knew she had no concept of gender, I couldn't stop my face from turning beet red. I gritted my teeth and quickly removed her clothes. That youth-like skin nearly blinded me. Just looking at her made me flush with heat. I hurriedly chanted to myself that she was a zombie to calm down, finishing her bath as quickly as possible. A minute later, I looked up at her. "Done. You should feel a bit better now, right?" But she just kept staring into my eyes. Unlike before, there seemed to be a flicker of emotion in her gaze. Thinking it might be an illusion, I leaned in closer to get a better look. The next second, her body suddenly pressed against me. I never expected a surprise attack and couldn't dodge in time, but the frantic biting I imagined never happened. A soft, slightly sweet sensation traveled from my lips. My eyes went wide open with shock. It wasn't until the system notification rang that I snapped out of it. Congratulations to the host for receiving the first KISS reward, Zombie Virus Vaccine. Once used, you will be immune to the zombie virus. Looking at her favorability on the panel, I was stunned again. Who knew a simple bath would jump her to 60, straight into the like stage? I closed the panel and asked, "Do you have feelings now?" She tilted her head innocently, clearly unable to process such a complex word. I switched to a simpler question. "Can you understand what I'm saying?" This time she nodded. I tried a few more questions, but whenever they got slightly complex, she fell back into a daze. It seems letting her act independently isn't realistic yet. However, as her favorability grows, she might truly recover her human emotions. By then, she'll surely understand more complex orders. But for now, we needed to get out of this restroom. Back in the classroom, I probed Nguyen Vien Vien for info and learned the fire station was right next to the administration building, but getting there meant circling around the horde on the sports field. I silently committed
The expansion. Work for me. I can give you the same treatment as her. 1 bowl of meat and 1 bowl of vegetables a day. Gen Vien Vien, who was eating happily nearby, suddenly felt the meat in her bowl wasn't as fragrant anymore. As for Wen Nin, she agreed without second thought. No problem. I immediately scooped a bowl for her, too. She devoured it ravenously. It seemed she really was starving. I then turned my gaze toward the remaining 2. Target, Lu He. Identity, art student, pianist. Favorability, 0. Hand-holding reward, piano skills. First kiss reward, a collection of piano skips. Total conquest reward, absolute piano talent. Target, Yang VV. Identity, materialistic student. Favorability, 10. Hand-holding reward, a car. First kiss reward, a 100 M² house. Total conquest reward, a 1000 M² house. After consulting the system in my head, I learned the car reward could be any model I specified, from a small Ferrari to a heavy-duty off-road truck. Even a tank was possible. Additionally, that 100 M² house was quite enticing. It could double my safe house. It seems this Yang VV had some utility value, while Lu He's rewards were hardly worth a second look. Yang VV keenly sensed my shift in gaze. She smoothed her hair and spoke in a coquettish voice. "May I ask, can I work for you too?" Standing nearby, Gen Vien Vien felt goosebumps break out all over her. Utterly disgusted, never imagining Yang VV would successfully use such a seductive ploy. To her shock, Aya nodded in agreement immediately. "Fine, the pay is the same as the other 2. Gen Vien Vien's eyes nearly popped out. What could this Yang VV actually do?
Why does she deserve the same treatment? Yang VV took the bowl I handed her, her fingers seemingly accidentally brushing against my hand. I noticed her hesitation. You can also choose to stay here. I choose to follow you, of course. Yang VV was a smart one. She knew staying here would lead to a miserable end. Better to take a gamble on me. Our movement quickly drew a crowd of onlookers. They immediately began to whisper. Where are they going? Are they crazy enough to want to go out there? It's better if they leave. I've been sick of looking at them for a long time. Lu He was also in the crowd. Hearing the gossip of her classmates, she furrowed her brow. Even though I had rejected her yesterday and said such harsh words, she still couldn't stand by and watch us go to our deaths. She dashed out of the crowd, blocking my path. Where are you all going? Leaving. After all, none of you like us, right? My counter-question left Lu He speechless. Just as she was about to say something, a voice rang out from behind. That's right, we certainly don't welcome you, but the others can stay. Teacher Wen, you are the school nurse. Stay with us. We really need you. This brat Gu Chengyu clearly understood the importance of a doctor, obviously trying to use the students to place moral pressure on Wen Nin. I flared up instantly. Damn it, you dare try to snatch my people right in front of me? But before I could speak, Wen Nin took a step forward. There's not even any medicine here. Me staying would be useless. It's better to leave. But you're a teacher. Even if you do nothing, just having you here makes everyone feel much safer. Gu Chengyu still tried to hold her back, but Wen Nin didn't waver at all, her heart set on following me. Seeing he couldn't persuade Wen Nin, he didn't bother teeping the others. In his eyes, besides Wen Nin having some use, Yan Vien Vien and Gang VV were nothing but burdens. Stop the nonsense. Let's go. I was too lazy to argue with him any longer. I turned to leave, and the girls behind me followed immediately. Since the apocalypse began, this was Yang VV's first time leaving the teaching building. She was nervously looking left and right, ready to bolt at any moment. But to her relief, there were no living zombies.